So here we are in the mechanical room. Sorry for any background noise from the furnace, but we're going to talk about how we prepare a glass for laser etching using a tempera paint. Now, initially, the videos I had seen, they had painted it on, they had thinned out the tempera paint, they had painted it on several coats, where it was a rather tedious process using the brush because it would pull off the previous layer. So I figured that is really too much time and effort. So came up with a dip method. Here I'm using water. I'm not sure because the lighting is really not that good if you can see, but I've got some water in there, and I would just place the glass in the water and roll it around, right? So you just roll that across. You have a volume of the tempera paint, which is usually mixed with water, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, depending on what you like in terms of consistency. But at the end of the day, I got a much better coat, but handling the glass was a problem. So I went out and I got myself some suction cups like this, and found myself a piece of copper water line that I had lying around, and a fixed one to the end. Just using, I had to use a little bit of duct tape just to fatten it up a bit, and then I glued it with an expanding glue to hold it in tight. So the process would then be to stick your suction cup onto the bottom of the glass, and there you go. You could then roll it around into your paint, and then it would be a pain to get off the bottom. Now, I've been using a heat gun to start the drying process on the glass, so the glass is hot, and that is also not good. So it occurred to me, because other things I've been doing included ceramic etching, where you're going to spray a titanium dioxide ethanol solution onto your ceramic, and that then creates a media that will allow your ceramic to be etched. I found these foam inserts online. Okay, I found that they fit quite nicely into the glass without fear of it, popping off, and not having any real difficulty taking it out at the end of the process. So I could take that out, leave that disc in there, or that foam insert in there if I really wanted to. But because I was using the titanium dioxide and spraying it, and because we are thinning out our tempera paint, here's the black paint that is mixed about 3 to 1, why can't I spray the tempera paint? The dip process works well, it's fairly efficient, but it puts too thick a coat onto the item, right? So here I am spraying the tempera around on my glass, and hopefully it comes through there that's a pretty nice even coat. You want to do some turning on the item to help it stay even, but then again, as I had mentioned, I would introduce a heat gun, and I hope the noise is not too onerous. So you take your heat gun and you just initiate the drying process, because I'm not going to stay here for 15 or 20 minutes to get this glass completely even. So as you can see, I've got a flat nozzle on there that helps distribute the heat across the glass a little bit more evenly. Obviously, you don't want to get it too hot, because yes, the glass does get very hot and does burn, When I was doing this before with the open glass, I would prefer to set the glass down and actually put the heat down into the glass. It gives me a much more even heating through the piece. So at this point, what we're doing is we're just going to get this to a place where it's starting to set up, because we just want to avoid runs. You'll start to see the paint start to dry there. You can see how it turns a lighter gray from its original black. And then you're going to take this item, and here's something I learned the hard way. Set the item down and then manipulate the heat gun, because if you drop the heat gun and catch it by the nozzle where the heat comes out, it's really, really hot, and you can get second-degree burns on your thumb. So, pro tip here is set the glass down, or the piece, turn off this. Mine happens to have a cool down feature. So as a rule, what I do is I set the heat gun aside while it's on cool down, and once that cool down has completed, the glass is cool enough to touch. That's the process that I'm using currently for glass etching in order to get a nice even transfer media on the outside. It's way faster than painting, way less tedious, and I hope that this helps somebody out there. All right, now that I have two hands to work with, the rotary attachment, as I had spoken about before, what I did is originally I put a couple of lines here. I used a square to make sure that this was squared up to the machine, because when I drew the lines on this board, it was based on the board, not how the machine was oriented on the board. And there is a slight a difference there. They're not quite squared up to each other. So I used this, I put this in there, I drew the line. So you want your roller to roll completely perpendicular to the laser module. Obviously, if you have it cockeyed, you're going to end up with a slant and things are going to look goofy on the piece. Now, since then, I have also drilled some holes into this for the coat hanger. Right, so now I can put it on a side. If it tends to want to go off to a side, I've got holes on both sides for that. If it tends to want to roll forward, which will determine when we start doing our framing, we'll see how it behaves, because the framing moves much more quickly than the roller does when it's in production. So you are going to any kind of wander that you're going to get is going to be expressed when you do that framing exercise. So that's stuff that I've got there. Now, another way that it helps to keep this thing centered is when you're using this piece, right? So I had done some stuff yesterday, so everything should be set up pretty well. You want to get this right in that nubbin there. It's not a nubbin, it's kind of a crotch. Anyway, bottom line is it's a place where the base is always going to come up against the rollers and try and is going to kind of help prevent this guy from wandering forward. And then again, the shape of the glass. So if you get it right in the little crotch there, you should be able to have a good stable situation as the glass rotates. Now, I've put a couple of marks on here. I don't know if that comes up on the camera. Right, there's a mark there, and I put a mark on the other side. Right, so this is going to help me know when I frame whether or not I am getting my stuff completely on opposite sides, because stuff that I did yesterday was not necessarily completely opposite, right? So I did bad math, and I know that the circumference of this glass is 275 millimeters, and then so again, you look at the size of your objects, and determine what that gap needs to be between the end of object A and the start of object B, or actually just from the beginning to the start of object B. And then you can expect that it's going to come out okay. So with this aligned, and you can see how when I turn this chuck this way, the gloss goes the other way, right? So even though the chuck is turning one way, the gloss is turning another, and you have to define whether you're using the chuck or the roller, because otherwise it comes out backwards. Not that I've ever done that. So we're gonna get this guy up. I've got, because I am using this from another file, I've just simply replaced this, and I'll just save it as something else. This height is all set up, which is convenient, and I just have to line it up to make sure it's where I want it in terms of how this thing is going to come out. So as I go through the process here, you want to frame it, and this is what I was talking about. So I'm going to set this as the bottom middle, because it's aligned with my mark of the start of the job. So we hit our framing button, say go and do stuff. Whoa, that is not right at all. That's why it's a good thing to do this stuff. And that's because when you do rotary, you rotate the image, as you would have seen as I showed it. The image was 90 degrees rotated, because of course we're printing across this way, we're not printing on a material this way, and that is how that needs to work. So when I set the start point for this, and I set it to the bottom middle, what I think is the bottom middle, it's not really the bottom middle, it's the right side, because it's on an angle. All right, we go again. Oh, and it moves in the right direction. Yeah, that I didn't like. So we don't appear to be having what we want here. So go get a coffee and I will fix it. So during the course of that exercise, I realized I had forgotten my insert. You need to put something on the inside of this glass to help prevent it from going through. If it hits this media and the laser continues to penetrate through, it's gonna may create a ghost image on the other side. It's depending on the power, it makes a difference. Now, instead of using the cardstock on the inside, which can create a black burnt bit, I'm just putting the tinfoil around my foamy guy, stuff that in there, and that will prevent that from happening. So we'll put our glass back on there. We'll get it into the position that it should help prevent it from wandering around. Put this back on top, hit the framing button, and believe in your math. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so that job has completed. We'll move this out of the way. Take a look. That's what it looks like when it's first done. We'll pull this out of the middle and see, oh my God, we have a nice opposition there between the name and the image. Sweet deal. Now for cleaning.